Welcome everyone to episode 19 of Be in the Room, How to Stop Shrinking and How to Start Leading with Purpose live series. This is 19 out of 20, which means we're wrapping things up. We're wrapping things up this week. Today we are getting all into, now that you're in the room, how do you create more space, whether that is with your presence or whether that is with your strategy, your language, your energy, etc. This is what we're talking about now. You're in the room. How do you take up more space? And today we're going to be covering a really important topic, which is managing up. Now, this is a barrier that I see time and time again when it comes to leaders. Leaders are constantly burning out, or they're not getting as far as they want to go. Why? Because they are afraid to manage up. Because there is a belief that they have to do whatever it is that comes down to them, that they have to do what they're told, that they can't challenge other people in the room because they have higher seniority, they have higher levels, they have more knowledge, they're smarter, etc., etc. And I'm going to show you today why that flawed thinking is keeping you small and potentially keeping you stuck. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So in the meantime, I'm going to paste this link here because, of course, as always, the things that I talk about in this live, you can find them in my book, which is called Be in the Room, How to Stop Shrinking, How to Start Leading with Purpose, available in all bookstores now. You can click if you comment the word room below, no, that's not true. If you comment the word book below, then you will get a DM so that you can order your copy. Let's say good morning to some folks, though. Let's start there. Good morning, Trishan. Hello, Sean. We have the people. Some people are just like constantly like they're just on this. Trishan, one of them. Sean, one of them. Layla, definitely one of them. Self-healing with Steph, definitely one of them. Good morning. London Curl, good to see you. Blow Grown, nice to see you. Yvette, and Biogrown. Thank you so much for commenting book. All right. So again, today is all about managing up. So here's what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to talk to you about why it is that we don't manage up. So why managing up feels so hard. I'm also going to be talking to you today about why it is that leaders want you to manage up. Okay. So what the strategic benefit of you managing up is going to be. We're also going to be talking about, I'm going to give you a framework for how to manage up. So I'm going to give you the framework that breaks down this strategy so that you know what you need to be considering in order to effectively manage up. And also, we're going to touch on what managing up is and what it is not. In other words, what is the difference between managing up and overstepping? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I want to be very clear on this. If you are a person who is currently in an organization or you have someone you report to, this live is definitely going to be of value to you. But I do not want the people who do not have that to count themselves out. Because if you are even an entrepreneur, if you are a solopreneur, if you are just someone who has other people in your sphere, better understanding managing up can help you to communicate to the people who are working with you what it is that you need and what it is that you expect from them in order for them to be more effective where you're concerned, right? So again, if you're managing up, this is a great framework. Even if you're managing down, this is a great, or across, this is a great way to communicate your expectations, communicate your desires, and communicate what it is that you're looking for in the culture that you are trying to build within your organization, within your business, etc. Because what we're going to be talking about here is not only going to help you grow from a leadership perspective in a corporate or business sense, small business sense, whatever, but it's also going to help you if you are looking to grow and scale your own business today. All right. Awesome. You got to figure out what you're doing with your life after the session is over. I know, actually, I was just thinking about that this morning. I was like, man, this is episode 19, and I'm kind of like feeling that I'm just now getting the hang of how to do these lives effectively. So I feel like I've learned so much on what it is on the ways to structure these things so that they're really valuable, they're really impactful. And now I'm getting to the end of it. So I'm definitely going to have to figure out a way to continue on this momentum and ensure that, all the things that I'm learning about this format are things that I can continue moving forward. Thanks so much, Grown. All right, Brandy, good morning. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get started with this idea, with why it is that people do not manage up or are afraid to manage up. So, for example, the most common one is the power dynamic triggers fear. Who am I to, right? That's a sentence that you've heard yourself say before. Who am I to tell so and so how we should be doing things? Who am I to tell this person what we need to be doing next? The assumption is that because someone has more power than you, that they are smarter than you, that they know exactly what to do, and that their ideas are going to be better than yours, right? Now, I don't know if any of you relate to this, but this is kind of the unspoken thing that I see with leaders all the time in coaching sessions. They are burning out continuously. They are taking on more and more and more and more because companies, especially a lot of companies, are starting to cut back, which means that companies are asking employees and leaders to do more with less. And the assumption is, I just got to go on with it because of the power dynamics, because of social conditioning as well, right? So social conditioning, especially for women of color, and anyone who was taught to who is an only in a room, we're taught to stay small. We're taught to be compliant, to not rock the boat, and to just be grateful that you're even in the room. So managing up can feel like, I don't want to be seen as a complainer. I don't want to be seen as someone who can't handle the work. I don't want to be seen as someone who's negative or challenging because I'm lucky just to be in here, right? Imposter syndrome, again, going back to the power dynamics, who am I to say any of this? I'm not as smart as the people making decisions, etc. Perfectionism, waiting for the perfect moment or the message, right? That is a big one. A lot of times when we are in these rooms, we are so afraid that our idea that we're going to put forward is going to be the wrong idea. The recommendation that we put forward is going to be the wrong recommendation. So what we do is we hold that back inside of us and we protect ourselves from being wrong. Or we tell ourselves that we're just waiting. We are waiting for the perfect solution, the perfect response before we will come in and move forward. Also the loyal soul, what's that? The speak loud, speak Lauren. Loyal soldier mindset, believing that your job is only execution, not influence. I'm just here to do a job, right? I'm just here to do what I'm getting paid to do. Let me just put my head down and do the work that's in front of me. That is the loyal soldier mindset. And that is what so many of us have, especially in a lot of the rooms that we contain. You're getting paid to do a job. Just shut up and do your job. Just shut up and do your job. Don't complain. Don't ask questions. Don't push back. Shut up, put your head down, do your job, get your paycheck, go home, build a dream. I don't know, right? So I can see that the loyal soldier mindset is hitting a few folks in this room right now. Again, we don't manage up because we're afraid to be labeled as difficult, but silence gets us labeled as disengaged and it burns us out. And when I tell you that this isn't just a message, that this isn't just apparent in people who are leaders or working in organizations, I literally had this conversation with my 14-year-old daughter just last night. Because she's actually, so right now she's in a magnet program, she's on a track team, she's filling in on a cheer team, and she has her own cheer team. So she's managing a lot right now. And last night she came to me in tears because she can feel her body breaking down, but she doesn't believe that she has the control in these arenas to say, hey, I need a beat. I need a minute. She's exhausted. She is breaking down. She's worried. She's frustrated. And she says, I don't think that I'm in control. And really what it is that it gets down to, I have a reputation of being the valuable one. I have a reputation of being the one who is needed in the room. I have a reputation of being the hard worker in the room. So if I push back, if I advocate for what I need, if I manage up, if I set up a boundary, then that reputation is at risk for me. So again, she doesn't work in an organization. She doesn't work in a corporate culture, but you can see how that mindset already starts to exist from the age of 14 and I can guarantee you even sooner. So again, it's looking for those places, no matter what arena we're in, where we are holding ourselves back from managing up in fear that is going to ruin the reputation that we have worked so hard to build, right? The reputation of being a loyal soldier, the reputation of being a hard worker, the reputation of being a team player. The reputation is being someone who just goes with the flow, who gets it done, who doesn't want to be difficult, right? Hey, Randy, good afternoon. So how much of that is resonating with some of you folks today? Because we can't talk about a strategy to move forward if we don't first address what is holding us back, right? And it is those mindsets, those beliefs that maybe we need to check ourselves for. Now, on the flip side, this is while we are holding ourselves back, many great leaders want us to manage up. They're looking for us to manage up more. Why? Because here's what most people do not realize about leaders, right? So leaders, what most people don't realize is that leaders operate with limited visibility. A lot of times, especially if you're in an organization, if you report into someone in a higher level, executive level, they are in meetings back to back to back to back to back all day long, and they have limited visibility for sometimes what's happening on the ground floor. You, as the person who is reporting into them, are closer to the friction. You are closer to seeing the gaps and the opportunities. Why? Because you're on the front lines of it. You're in the rooms that they are not in. You are running the execution that they don't have the capacity to execute, right? You have perspective. You have perspective that they do not have, nor do they have a desire to have, because they're trying to lead at this level up here, right? They don't want to have the full, they don't want to have the nitty gritty. They don't want to be in the weeds of what's going on here. They want to be able to trust and empower their leaders to know exactly what's going on below them so that they can bring the important information back up to them, right? So feedback and insight offered strategically, it builds trust. It builds credibility and it builds influence. Essentially, managing up says, I'm operating now as your peer, right? I'm operating as someone who is with you side by side, who wants to see the business outcomes thrive. So I'm going to show you what you're not seeing. I'm going to challenge you with perspectives that you may not have. This is who people want with them in the rooms that they go into. This is how you open doors. This is how you level up your experience, because you stop focusing so much on just do your job. And we've talked about this before. You start getting curious about what they care about and leading beside them versus being led by them. You understand? Leading beside versus being led by. This is where you want to move up to. All right. Because again, when you are leading beside, there is a level of trust. There is a level of thought partnership. There is reputation. They want to bring you into more conversations because they value that you will see things that they don't. I actually was offered a job. When I was a director, they offered me a job as chief of staff. And at first, I didn't want to work for that SVP. I didn't want to work for that SVP because he had the reputation of being toxic, because he had the reputation of like it was a whole boys club that was happening. And I went back and forth on this because I knew that it was a great career opportunity, that it would give me a view to running a business that I wouldn't have if I was just managing a business function. And it would give me more cross-functional leadership. It would give me more cross-functional experience. But I didn't want to do it. And it wasn't until he brought me into his office and he said this one thing. He said, I want you in this position because you are going to tell me when I'm wrong. Leaders want to be challenged. And this is off. And now I say, this is not a blanket statement for all leaders, right? But strategic, influential, and forward moving leaders, and the leaders that I know that we're building in the rooms today, they are looking to elevate their own levels, which means that they need to invite that challenge, that thought diversity. Okay. So that good leaders want to be challenged. Absolutely. All right. So, limited visibility. Who around me thinks like a leader? Again, who around me is thinking like me? Who around me is thinking on my level? Again, that's who I want to bring in the room. What it signals when you manage up well, it shows I understand the business. When you are managing up confidently and effectively, it says I understand the business. You take ownership of the outcomes, not just the tasks. Again, you are leading beside, which means that you are partnering with your leader to drive to business outcomes versus I'm just going to do my job, right? I'm just going to do my job really well, my tasks, my outcomes, deliver what's in front of me. And you are future focused and solution oriented and emotionally intelligent. This is what managing up signals to not only your leader, but to the other leaders around that leader. Every leader wants a right-hand person. Every leader is looking for a successor. Every leader is wondering, if I go to the next level, who's going to take my place? And when you become effective at managing up, you are the first person on that roster. If you choose to be, because I can guarantee you, if you do this effectively, as I have done before, it's not just going to be that leader who's poking you for the next thing. It's going to be other leaders around you who are just like, I need one of you over with me, right? Okay. So if your leader doesn't hear your input, they don't just lose your ideas, they lose your engagement. See it happen all the time. Really smart people hold themselves back. So now that we have covered why managing up is effective and why most people will not do it, now I'm going to break down the strategy for you and the framework so that you have what it takes to go and do this, whether it's in your organization, with the people that you lead up to, whether it's the people that you lead down to, whether it's the people even in your home. I tell my kids to manage up all the time. I tell my kids, you need to manage up. I've got so much going on in my world. If something is important to you, you need to advocate for it. You need to manage up. You need to put the forms in front of me. You need to say, sign here. Here's what I need. Here what the impact is. You've got to be responsible for that. Otherwise, if you keep waiting for me to have the best answer or to be on top of it all, both of us are going to fail. All right. Hey, Charles, welcome. All right. So let's get into the framework, which means that we're going to the whiteboard. Going to the whiteboard. We're going to break down some shit. Okay. I'm going to move this over here. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can all see me now. Okay. We all clear? Perfection. Okay. So what I'm going to show you are the 5 P's of managing up. If you can hit these 5 P's in your thinking, in your conversation, when someone puts something on you, if you are getting too much at work, if your manager or your leader keeps piling more and more on you and you're getting burnt out because you feel like you can't say no, here is the structure that I'm going to give you to help you to challenge, to push back, but in a way that is strategic and forward thinking. Okay. Reminds me of elementary school. Thank you. All right. I've only heard managing up in different language, but I can see how beneficial. Yay, drawings. Yes. Awesome. It is beneficial. Let me make sure this is the marker that works. I can't remember. This one sucks. I should just throw it away. Okay. Let's talk about the 5 P's of managing up. So let's take this circle here. Okay. Now we're going to split this circle into a pie. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay. All right. P number 1, picture. Here's what you need to be thinking of. What is the big picture. What is the vision that either your organization has, your business unit has, your team has? What does your leader have? So what is it that we talked about this before, not just knowing what is on your objective scorecard, but understanding what is your leader managing toward? What is it that they are looking to accomplish? What are they being measured by? You need to understand, essentially picture says, what do they care about? Okay. What do they care about? Big picture. What is the picture they care about? The next P here is potential. Now, remember when I talked about how you are the one who is closer to the action, which means that you are the one who is best able to identify the potential risks or the potential opportunities. This is your opportunity to say, I know what you care about. Let me show you what you might not see. So this is potential. I know what you care about. Let me show you what you might not be seeing that could impact your picture. Okay? All right. Next one is plan. This is really important because it's not just one thing to say, here's the problem, but it's also to say, here's what I recommend. Going in with a recommendation, because the people who don't go in with recommendations, who just come up with problems and no solutions, those people are getting, no one likes it. And then you're just complaining. Now that's where managing up becomes done ineffectively because all you're telling the person is, I can't do it. I've got too much on my plate. I can't deliver. You're not giving me enough. Okay. So then come up with the plan. What is the plan? What is your recommendation? Too many people are waiting to be given direction. Not enough people are providing recommendations. Here's the problem. Here's what I propose. It may not be right, but again, it signals that you are thinking at a more strategic level, that you are outcomes focused, that you are leading, okay? Now, over here we have payoff. So this is things like ROI. If we execute this, here's what we stand to gain. If we do nothing, here's what we stand to lose, right? So what is the payoff? Again, connecting to this picture, connecting the payoff to what it is that they care about. Because if you're trying to change things or manage up or push back based on and speaking a language that your leader doesn't speak, it is going to be that much more difficult to sell, right? They want to know what's in it for them, what's in it for their picture. Hello, Minette. Welcome, welcome. All right. So again, what do they care about? What are the risks or opportunities that I'm currently seeing? What do I recommend? And if we do this, what is the potential payoff? If we do nothing, what is the potential impact, right? And then finally, the other P here is people. Going back to if we go back to, I think it was week 2 where we did relationship mapping, having a good sense of who your leader is connected to, what their sphere of influence is, how you can start building relationships or leveraging the people who are going to be impacted, the people who need to be brought in. So when your leader is pushing something on you and you feel like, I just can't take on another thing, right? Instead of raising your hand and being like, I can't do this. Or instead of saying nothing and just assuming that you can't have a conversation and you just have to do what it is that you're told, I encourage you, start thinking about how you are going to challenge and push back in a way, manage up in a way that says, I'm not just thinking about me here, but I'm thinking about the whole picture. I know that you want this to be the priority. However, right now, our biggest goal, our big focus, the thing that you're getting measured on is this thing right here. And if we add this onto the plate, just so you know, these are the other projects that are going to become at risk. And maybe that's okay. Here's what I propose that I do instead. Here's what I propose we deprioritize. Here's what I propose we do in terms of like execution or support, because it will give us this payoff. And here's who we can here's who needs, here's how I will manage that communication, right? So again, you can see how this is not just about pushing back or complaining or saying I can't, I don't want to. This is about saying this is a priority. I hear that we're adding this. Here's what you might not be seeing. Here's the impact of us taking this on. So here's what I propose. Let's have a discussion about it. Here's what I propose we prioritize. Here's what I propose we deprioritize based on what our big goal is. And if that vision is changing, let's talk about that too, right? Awesome. So the other day, ROI, absolutely. Return on investment. Sometimes just a proposal and getting it out there will open your boss's eyes to potential. Absolutely. It is a huge thing. If nothing else, when you are coming with managing up, means that you are coming in with a recommendation. You are coming in with a plan. If you are not coming in with a recommendation, all you're doing is complaining. And that is when you are at risk for no longer looking like a team player. That is when you are at risk for no longer looking like you are reliable. All the things that you are trying to protect, that is what you'll experience. Change is hard for everyone. Imposing things in an open-handed way is key sometimes in those situations, right? Exactly. And what if they insist? Again, letting them know, being clear about what the impacts are, whether that is the impacts from an ROI perspective, they have the ability to choose. Now, I've always said with my leader, when you have something, if I don't agree with it, I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you why I think it. But ultimately, what it is, whatever you say goes. But at least I'm giving you the ability to choose the path with the full picture. And that way, you'd also take ownership. If I've communicated the risks of us taking this on and you say, I don't care, Lauren, we're going anyways, great. Now we're in this together, right? Now we're in this together. Now we're going to, because they will and they can insist. The whole point is not necessarily to get them on your side, to get them to do what you want them to do, but to enable, give them the information that enables them to make an informed decision on how we want to chart forward. Okay? All right. So again, what I'm talking about here, we need to be sure that we understand. We've talked about the difference between managing up and complaining. Coming without proposed solutions, you're just complaining. You're just bringing problems without solutions. Now, let's talk about what other people are afraid of, which is the overstepping piece, right? So, managing up is proactive insight shared with humility. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I want to let you know. Let's have a conversation about this. I could be wrong, right? But you need to see what you're not seeing. I want to bring to your attention what you're not seeing so you can make an informed decision about what we prioritize, what we do, who we talk to, who we need to engage, etc. Context offered from your level of visibility, and framing your input in service of shared outcomes. That's why this picture piece is so good. If you don't understand who you're leading cares of, who you're being led by cares about, then it's going to be a hard sell for you to push back on anything. Okay? Because you can't frame it in a language that resonates with them. So that's where the humility piece comes into it, and the empathy piece. Now, overstepping. This is why a lot of people don't manage up, because they don't want to overstep. Hey, Leslie. They don't want to overstep. You are overstepping if you are ego-driven correction or contradiction. If you're just someone who just contradicts for the sake of contradicting, who is just constantly playing that devil's advocate, but again, not offering any kind of solutions or being part of the shared outcomes, that's where you're overstepping. If you're delivering feedback without facts, timing, or permission, you are potentially overstepping. Again, feedback without tact, timing, or permission. And if you are ignoring chain of command by bypassing trust, if you're going around people, if you're not engaging your leader, again, this whole managing up piece is about trust. So if you are going around that person, signaling to them that you don't trust them, then that trust gets broken with you, and they will believe that you are overstepping, right? So that is a clear difference that I want to make sure that people understand, because managing up and complaining two different things. Managing up and overstepping, two very different things. Okay. So how do you know which one you're doing? The intention. Are you doing it to be seen as right? Right? Are you doing it to be seen as right? Your tone. Am I leading with curiosity or confrontation? It's very, very important. If you're leading with confrontation, it gets people's back up, right? And they don't want to hear it because all they can think about is this person's only interested in protecting themselves, right? They're not interested in the outcomes. Timing. Is the moment right or am I acting emotionally? Talked about at the beginning of this week the power of the pause. When you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling like you're being taken on, that you're taking on too much, when you feel like you're out of control, when you feel like something's going to give or that you're burning out, it's that moment of pause to say, to do some of this thinking, to break down your thinking in a way that is going to ensure that you are acting, that you aren't approaching this from a place of pure emotion, right? That you give space for your emotional brain and your thinking brain to come together. And that is really what these structures are intended to do. Because again, we talk about how we are all emotional decision makers first. Giving this structure ensures that we bring your thinking brain on board. Because when we don't do that, we don't take the pause, when we don't think through these 5 Ps, now you're letting your emotional brain run the show. Whether that is your emotional brain that is operating from fear and telling you burning out is better than losing your reputation, or whether that is your emotional brain saying you're too tired, tell them enough is enough, right? Either way, this brings your thinking brain on board so that you are making decisions and communicating in a way that takes up space without overstepping. Okay? All right. Huge for me as a person who doesn't like confrontation, who wants to lead. Absolutely. Yep. And I hope that these tools give you that framework to be able to say, I could take a pause, but what can I do to most effectively structure that pause so that on the other side, I come out of this better. All right. That is your big lesson for today, all about managing up and the 5 strategic Ps. We've talked about why people don't manage up and what the costs of that are. We've talked about why leaders want you to manage up and what the impacts of that not only are on their goals, their business, but on your ability to move up as well, your ability to lead with more influence. We've talked about the 5P structure that gives you the ability to structure how you're thinking about managing up and doing it in such a way that is going to be impactful versus looked at complaining or overstepping. And most importantly, we talked about the difference between the two. And how do you know when you are pushing back from a place of emotion or you're pushing back and challenging from a place of strategy? That is the difference. That is what it means to be in the room. Okay. So, Bob Grundy said, my boss always asked me how I got to that concept, and it made me anxious at first, but legit wants to know but it triggers your anxiety. And I think that that's a great thing to say because, yeah, you're right. You think that their curiosity is challenging like your intelligence, but really, again, they're trying to gain the perspective that only you uniquely have that they don't. So definitely a great call out there. All right. That is it for today. Tomorrow, it is our last live together. We are going to be wrapping up this entire segment, this 20-part Be in the Room series. We will maybe I'll do like a summary, key highlights, things that major frameworks that we could take away so that way it's like if you only remember a few things from this 20-part series, here are the key things that I really want you to take away and how these things are going to allow you to not only take up more space in the rooms that you are in, but also prepare you and ready you and get you noticed for the rooms that you want to be in as well. All right. I'm Lauren Morrison, certified executive and business coach, and it is always such a pleasure to spend my mornings with you today, giving you the knowledge and tools that I know are game changers, not because I've read it in a book, but because I've lived them and because I leverage these tools with all the leaders that I work with, and I've seen firsthand how effective these things are. I know what leaders are looking for. I know what organizations are looking for. I know the cultures that people are trying to breed. And this free game here is giving you that inside track. All right? I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day today. Bye.